Hello viewers and welcome to another match of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today we've a grudge match between Taylor Parolini on the left, playing as Archon Salaine Morn, and Christopher Dale Bates on the right, piloting Packmaster Kith. Thanks to Chris for sending in this footage filmed at the Fantasy Flight Games Event Center, and note that planet number 1, currently under contest, is going to be Ossus 4, the Steel 1 resource token planet. Archon Salaine Morn is going to be our Warlord, which begins the game in possession of our initiative token, and Taylor's opening deploy action is going to be throwing out a copy of Siren Zithlex to planet number 1. For the cost of 3, our unique Dark Eldar faction loyal army unit has 2 command icons to attack as well as a reservoir of 3 hit points, and whenever your opponent happens to deploy a unit to her same planet, whether during the deploy phase or the combat phase, it ends up being exhausted. But Kith responds in kind by throwing out a copy of the 1-cost attachment Suffering, currently dropping Siren Zithlex's attack value down to 0, and now any opposing unit whatsoever is potentially going to be able to win a battle at that same planet. But it's not just any unit that Chris decides to toss out, it's none other than the Great Devourer Dark Eldar faction unique unit. It is Solarite Avedis, 4 cost, 1 command icon to attack, 4 hit points, the flying keyword, and a reaction whereupon whenever she ends up taking damage from an attack, so long as she does successfully take damage, it's not shielded and blocked, she deals out 2 points of damage to her assailant, which could definitely add up over the course of this game. At planet number 4, Kith throws out a copy of the 2-cost Chaos Fanatics, a 2-command icon, 1 attack, 2 hit point cultist trait unit, and now it looks like both of our players are deciding where exactly they want to send their respective warlords. Note, planet number 2 is going to be Karnath, that wildcard planet, which allows you to trigger any battle ability of any other planet in play. Kith arrives at planet number 1, Archon Salaine Morn goes to planet number 2. Planet number 1 is going to be a couple of resources for Kith, planet number 2 is going to be a card and a resource for Archon Salaine Morn. Looks like there's absolutely nothing that Siren Zithlex is going to be able to do to oppose Packmaster Kith, apart from throwing out a bunch of Shadowed Thorns Pillagers, or Klavex War Leaders, something along those lines, but it's still looking relatively insurmountable. At planet number 1, Kith, of course, has generated a 2/1 creature trait Chimera token, and that same token is going to be directing a blow to Siren Zithlex. Looks like Taylor accepts his fate. That is going to be a dead copy of Siren Zithlex. Kith and the Chimera token have dealt that killing blow together. We come to the end of a combat round that's going to be a green strongpoint type icon added to Kith's victory display. It's going to be -1 resource for Taylor, +1 resource for Chris, and then Archon Salaine Morn is going to win a battle entirely uncontested at planet number 2. That's going to be Eloith activated, unless I'm gravely mistaken, which I'm not, by Karnath, and that's going to be a total of, well, it's going to allow Taylor the ability to look at the top 3 cards of his deck and add one of those cards to his hand. It looked as though his chosen card was going to be Archon's Terror. I definitely can't fault him at all for making that choice, and then the remaining 2 cards are added to the bottom of his deck. Looks like we've gone through an HQ phase. That's going to be 2 cards and 4 resources for each of our players. Planet number 1 currently indicating that Chris has our initiative, and his opening deploy action is going to be his own copy of Siren Zithlex, currently positioned at planet number 2. That means if Kith ends up winning at, say, planet number 2 and also planet number 4, then that could be the game going to Kith. But planet number 1, we've got a copy of Bloodied Reavers thrown out by Archon Salaine Morn. For the cost of 2, they've got a command icon to attack, 2 hit points, and provided a Warlord is present at that same planet, they get an ephemeral +2 attack value bonus, bringing them to a total of 4. And another one of our newest Dark Eldar faction units, we see the Cabalite Harriers, one of Archon Salaine Morn's specialty units, thrown out to planet number 1. For the cost of 2, they've got a command icon, 1 attack, 2 hit points, and most importantly, they're a Cabalite, and whenever you deploy a Cabalite to their planet, you deal 1 point of damage to an undamaged unit at that same planet. They proc off of themselves, and they directed a damage toward that Incubus Warrior at the same planet. We saw a copy of Promotion discarded to prevent the Incubus Warrior from being outright killed, and it looks like the same exact thing is currently ongoing at planet number 5. We see an Incubus Warrior put into play, and then an opposite copy of Cabalite Harriers. This time we saw a copy of Archon's Terror, the non-unique, routing, monumentally powerful old Dark Eldar combat trick discarded as a shield, and now if we end up seeing more Kabalites, if we end up seeing more Shadowed Thorns Pillagers put into play during, say, the command combat phase, that stands to deal out all the more damage to those Incubus Warriors, and for the cost of 2, those 2 command icon units do have 3 attack value, but they're rather squishy with just 1 hit point. At planet number 1, that Kabalite Harriers has picked up a copy of Bladed Lotus Rifle, so therefore it's going to have an attack value of 2, it's going to have the ranged keyword, and now both of our players are deciding where exactly they want to end up sending their Warlords. All that Kith is going to have to do is end up defending planet number 2 and planet number 4, and then she's going to be able to win, but Archon Salaine Morn is basically going to have to establish any given victory condition. Looks like Archon Salaine Morn is going to arrive at planet number 5, and Kith drops off Solarite of Vetus and a Chimera token, and generates a new Chimera token at planet number 4. Let's see, planet number 1 is going to be a push. Neither player is going to end up winning anything from that planet. Planet number 2 is going to be a card to the right for Kith. Planet number 3 is going to be a couple of cards to the right for Kith. Planet number 4 is going to be a resource for Kith, and planet number 5 is going to be a whopping 1 card and 1 resource to the left for Archon Salaine Morn. During the ranged skirmish round at planet number 1, that Kabalite Harriers ends up taking a shot for 2. It kills that copy of Incubus Warrior, and therefore that is going to be Karnath added to the victory display of Archon Salaine Morn. Looks like that is going to be Aatrox Prime firing at planet 4, so Kith takes a point of damage, Solarite of Vetus takes a point of damage. Solarite of Vetus is now going to be an eligible target for a Clavex War Leader, which entirely circumvents that incredibly nasty, rather deleterious reaction she has affixed to her. Really, Solarite of Vetus is just a unit that gives me a whole hell of a lot of trouble. Packmaster Kith is going to bounce away from planet number 4, not triggering Yvarn, and note that that's going to be 2 dead Chimera tokens. At planet number 5, Archon Salaine Morn takes a swing. A copy of Agonizer of Bren is going to be discarded as a shield in order to block that attack, and we see a copy of Shadowed Thorns Pillagers thrown out to that planet. It's a Kabalite entering play at planet number 5. It's going to proc the ability of the Kabalite Harriers. Kith discards a copy of Pact of the Homunculi to block off that unit, and then we see another copy of Shadowed Thorns Pillagers, which again processes that effect, and that's going to be a dead copy of Incubus Warrior there. Archon Salaine Morn uses a copy of Raid. Looks like that's going to be -1 resource for Kith, +1 resource for Taylor, and I guess Archon Salaine Morn is doing a pretty damn decent job of resource choking. Note that each and every Kabalite deployed at a red material type icon planet, limit once per phase, is going to refund 1 resource in the form of gaining 1 resource to the Archon, which is going to be relevant in case we see Dying Sun's Marauders in one of our newest Dark Eldar faction events. At planet number 5, we just saw a Gut and Pillage played, which is going to reap a total of 3 resource tokens for Archon Salaine Morn, successfully winning a battle at a red material type icon planet. We go through another HQ phase. That means we're going to have each of our players come across 2 cards and 4 resource tokens apiece. Archon Salaine Morn and Kith are now in their respective HQs. Taylor is going to be our player in possession of the initiative token, and note that he's invested rather heavily in planet number 4, which does lay outside of Kith's earliest victory condition. Note that our players have inadvertently forgotten to reveal a 5th planet. Chris ended up giving me this video as a bit of a special request. It's always a little bit embarrassing when you forget to play with the appropriate number of planets, but since both players are playing with all the information available to them, hopefully it's not going to end up modifying anything much. But planet number 3, Kith's possible victory condition, we see a copy of Bloodied Reavers, and in Archon Salaine Morn's victory display, we've currently got a copy, in her HQ, we've got a copy of her signature support, the Nexus of Shadows. It's a unique card for the cost of 1. You can invest 2 resources in it up to 1 time per phase in order to draw a card, and the more resources you reap, the better, and if you have a surplus, you may as well transform some of those into additional cards. But looks like we see a couple of very interesting plays. That is going to be a copy of the common Chaos event Doombolt. I can only imagine that's going to be targeted towards Solarite of Vetus. It deals X damage to a target unit as a deploy action, where X is equal to the number of damage already on that unit. unit, and it looks like Solar Eye of Vetus is going to be blasted into oblivion, and there is no shield card spent, so that was a hell of a play. Planet number 1, we've got a copy of Dying Sun Marauder being thrown out there. For the cost of 2, it's another Kabalite, no command icons, but it's a 2/3, and its ability is whenever you gain a resource, either during command or through Archon Salaine Morn or any number of other card effects like Gut and Pillage, you ready that unit. Currently at planet number 1, we've also got a copy of the signature army unit Kith's Chimera Masters. It's a 1/2 for 2 with a command icon. It generates a Chimera token, but that Dying Sun Marauder does currently possess initiative, and if we see during the command phase Archon Salaine Morn win a resource at some planet, then the Dying Sun Marauder is going to be able to ready and get off an attack prior to it being torn apart by whatever units are present at that planet. But planet number 1, that is going to be a card to the right for Kith. Planet number 2, that is going to be a couple of cards for, looks like Kith, thanks to the Chaos Fanatics. Planet 3 is going to be a resource token to the right for Kith. Planet number 4 is going to be a card and a resource to the left for Taylor. Note, planet number 5 is still erroneously unrevealed, but we're going to have Archon Salaine Morn and Kith showing up both at planet number 1. That is going to be a bit of a showdown right there indeed. It's going to be Archon Salaine Morn with the initiative token, but I guess there's going to be a Chimera Master at that planet, because during the command phase, Taylor picked up a resource. That means the Dying Sun Marauder is going to be able to ready, and now, thanks to any number of different ambushing units like Clavex Warleader and or Shadowthorn's Pillager, that could result in Taylor ending up taking planet number 1. But, unless mine eyes deceive me, that indeed is going to be a copy of Siren Zithlex at that same planet, and therefore units are going to be arriving into play exhausted, and that about sucks. But the Dying Sun Marauder is going to take a swing of 2 at Siren Zithlex. Will we see a Clavex Warleader absolutely destroy her? Kind of the shitty thing about that, though, is the Clavex Warleader is deployed, then you can trigger its reaction, and it's exhausted. It's not going to be able to attack. But Siren Zithlex has 2 points of damage. Looks like the Siren and the Chimera Masters end up killing off that copy of the Dying Sun's Marauder, and now, are we going to see the Clavex Warleader or not? Or are we just going to see Kith win Iridial, and that's going to be another green strongpoint type icon added to Kith's victory display? What is it going to be? Looks like Taylor Parolini is going to be lost in thought, and actually, never mind, that's going to be Iridial added to the victory display of our dear Packmaster, and I can only imagine that's going to be Packmaster Kith peeling off a couple of points of damage off of herself, that had resulted from that double trigger of Aatrox Prime the previous round, thanks to Karnath and Aatrox Prime itself. But planet number 2, Archon Salaine Morn takes a swing. That is going to be an obliterated Chimera token. And now, what exactly is our Packmaster going to do? The Chaos Fanatics swing for just a total of 1, directed toward that Bloodied Reavers, and of paramount importance to consider is that Packmaster Kith currently has nowhere near a sufficient number of resources in order to put out a copy of Clavex Warleader. So Kith tries to finish the job that the Chaos Fanatics started, and that is indeed going to be a dead copy of the Bloodied Reavers there. Now we're going to come to the end of a combat round. Will either of our players retreat? It's going to be up to Archon Salaine Morn to make that decision first, immediately proceeded by Packmaster Kith. Packmaster Kith retreats, the Chaos Fanatics retreat, and that about sucks, returning a 2 command icon unit exhausted to a planet when it does not even count its command icons. But Taylor is going to be able to survive to trigger that battle ability. Therefore, he's going to be able to pick his choice of the top 3 cards of his deck and put the remaining 2 on the bottom of his deck in the order of his choice. And let's see if our players are finally going to reveal another planet. Looks like they've maybe caught their mistake. I can only imagine they are wincing in shame. There we go. That's going to be Planum, the move a non-Warlord unit planet, finally revealed during our HQ phase. And it looks like Taylor kind of laments his mistake there and counting up all of our planets and indicating, oh yeah, we kind of goofed. But oh well, very much appreciate this footage, dear Sir Christopher. No harm, no foul, and hopefully it does not prevent you from sending in fantastic games like this one. It is an absolute joy and honor to see some of our latest Dark Eldar faction cards, and an HQ phase means both of our players have accrued 4 resources and the top 2 cards of their deck. And what are we going to see but the initiative is now in Packmaster Kith's possession. So So, what are we going to expect from each of these players? Kith currently sitting on 5 resource tokens, and Archon Salaine Morn sitting on ever so slightly more than 5. Actually 8. That's going to be enough for a double Clavex War Leader or any number of combat tricks or deploy phase tricks currently sitting in Taylor's hand. In Kith's HQ, looks like she's kind of, I don't know, styling up the place, whatever you want to call it, with a copy of Archon's Palace. Doombolt, by the way, ends up killing off that copy of the already wounded Siren Zithlex, and that's always a bit of a tricky prospect. Like, do you want to kill Siren Zithlex, or do you want to leave her wounded so that you can keep deploying units at a planet? Like, the instant Siren dies, that basically tells Chris, okay, play out your second or third copy of Siren Zithlex, and then any and all units I deploy end up being exhausted. And again, if need I say it one more time, if Kith is going to be able to win planet number 2, that is going to be the game for Kith. But anyways, Archon's Palace currently sitting in Kith's HQ. Whenever Taylor ends up winning a command struggle at a planet, you simply exhaust that 2-cost unique Dark Eldar faction loyal support, and you either turn the card or resource bonus associated with that planet, including any and all modifiers, you basically just turn it to 0. But Incubus Warrior at planet number 4, played out by Taylor opposite the 1-cost 1-command icon 0/1 +1 card bonus Void Pirate, played by Packmaster Kith, and Kith has the audacity of playing a Slith Mercenary to planet number 1. So for the cost of just 1 resource, it's got a couple command icons, 2 attack, 2 hit points, and either player can spend 2 resources in order to purchase control of that unit, kind of bribing it over to fight for your side. And very interesting that even though Kith has the initiative, because that Cabalite Harriers at Planet 1 has a Bladed Lotus Rifle, it's going to be able to attack during ranged, and therefore it's going to be able to either kill off the Slith Mercenary, or Taylor has far more resources than does our Packmaster, and therefore he could just outright purchase control of that unit. But that may be a ploy by Christopher just to try to get the resource token amount down for Taylor, just to disallow him from being able to drop a Clavex or something along those lines in combat. But planet number 1, we see a copy of Bloodied Reavers for Taylor, for Archon Salaine Morn, and at planet number 4 for Chris, for Kith, that's going to be another copy of Slith Mercenaries. So that's going to be very tempting indeed for Taylor to try to purchase that unit. But I imagine Kith is going to be showing up to planet number 2, her victory condition planet. But if Taylor were to, Taylor could send his Warlord to planet number 4, or he could either just purchase control of that Slith Mercenary and end up besting that Void Pirate that way. But looks like Archon Salaine Morn arrives at 4, Kith arrives at 2, she generates a Chimera token, and now that's going to be a whole hell of a lot of units for Taylor to have to chew through. Let's hope for, our sake that Archon Salaine Morn is going to be able to work her magic and beat the, tournament competitive powerhouse Packmaster Kith here. But planet number 1 is going to be a couple of cards probably shut off thanks to Archon's Palace. Planet number 2 is going to be a resource won by Kith. Planet 3 is going to be a card and a resource for Salaine Morn. At planet number 1, the Cabalite Harriers kill that copy of Slith Mercenary. An attack of 2 outright dispatches it. That's going to be Eloith triggering yet again, 3rd or 4th time thus far this game. That's going to be 1 card added to Taylor's hand of his choice of the top 3, the remaining 2 added to the bottom of his deck. And at planet number 4, that's going to be a card and a resource for Archon Salaine Morn, and absolutely nothing for Kith. Kith, once again, decides not to trigger Yvarn. Go figure that a Dark Eldar player generally doesn't trigger that planet, which basically forces both players to put an army unit from their hand directly into play into their HQ. And now that's going to be a very large volume of units for Archon Salaine Morn to attempt to surmount the following round. But planet number 4, Salaine Morn takes a swing with her Incubus Warrior. That's going to be a dead copy of Slith Mercenary. Salaine herself ends up killing off a copy of Void Pirate. End of a combat round. Units ready. Then that's going to be an opportunity for Taylor to relocate those Cabalite Harriers to planet number 1, and he had better hope to high hell that he is going to have a large number of Cabalites to throw out at that same planet, because if he's going to be able to just create some monsoon of outpouring fire to engulf those Chimera tokens and everything else, that could be absolutely delightful to see. So let's see what, if anything, our newest Dark Eldar army units do. Note, an HQ phase has come and gone. 4 resources, 2 cards for each of our players players. Archon Salaine Morn currently has the initiative at our currently potentially decisive planets. And note, I believe that's going to be 2 blue technology-type icons in the HQ of Taylor, and that is going to be a hell of a thing. That is going to be a second copy of Kabalite Harriers. They trigger one another and themselves. So, Kabalite Harriers 2 procs Kabalite Harrier 1, and Kabalite Harrier 2 procs Kabalite Harrier 2. So, that's going to be a dead Chimera a dead Chimera token. It's going to be a Gut and Pillage discarded as a shield. That's going to be a Murder of Razorwings played out by Kith. 1 cost, 1 attack, 1 hit point, no command icons, but you forced random card discard a copy of Suffering from your opponent. A Dying Sun Marauder is going to be deployed to that same planet. That is going to be another 2 procs. Both of those Kabalite Harriers damage for days. That's going to be a dead Chimera token. That is going to be a dead Murder of Razorwings. And those units are just absolutely doing work. And keep in mind, if we see a Shadowed Thorns Pillager played during combat at that planet, what is going to happen? The Dying Sun Marauder is potentially going to be able to ready, and both copies of Kabalite Harrier are going to be able to proc and deal out a point of damage apiece to an undamaged enemy unit. And that is a fantastic setup for Klavex Warleader. So let's see if Archon Salaine Morn is going to be able to win this one anyway. It's almost seeming like she, as of what lurks below, is going to be the anti-Kith Warlord. Perhaps more so than Zarather, but this is going to be one hell of a match here. I cannot wait to see how it ends up being resolved. Both of our players are deciding where exactly they want to send their warlords, and it all is going to come down to this. Whichever player ends up winning at this planet is going to take home the gold. That's going to be Archon Salaine Morn and Packmaster Kith arriving at planet number 1. That's going to be Kith generating a 2/1 creature trait Chimera token. That is going to be 2 command icons for Archon Salaine Morn and 4 command icons for Kith. So, Kith ends up getting a resource from planet number 1. Planet number 2 is going to be a card and a resource for Archon Salaine Morn. At some point, Archon's Palace does something. Planet number 3 is going to be a card and a resource for Taylor, thanks to his Incubus Warrior there at that location. And now, what exactly are we going to see? There are now 3 copies of Kabalite Harrier at planet number 1. That's going to be a slightly, maybe suboptimally played copy of Shadowed Thorns Pillager, just because the Dying Sun Marauder had yet to attack. But I guess he maybe wanted to do this before Archon's Terror removed a unit from that planet. That's going to be a 2/2 Kabalite trait unit with Ambush being dropped into play. It also refunds 1 resource. That's going to be 1, 2, 3 procs for each of the Kabalite Harriers. It's going to be a point of damage on the Bloodied Reavers, a point of damage on Packmaster Kith, and I guess there's going to be 1 more point of damage, but dealt out to what? To the Chaos Fanatics or to the Kith's Chimera Masters? It does not really matter, but if it were me, I would try to get rid of those Chaos Fanatics because I don't necessarily approve of interfaction relationships. Just kidding. I did not actually just say that. So, a copy of Klavex Warleader splashes into play, ambushed by Archon Salaine Morn. It's going to automatically destroy that copy of Bloodied Reavers, and again, I can't help but feel like that was maybe a little bit premature or, unnecessary, just because it's not as if Archon Salaine Morn doesn't have the first opportunity to attack. Archon herself is going to be a 2/7, Kith is going to be a 2/5, owing to that 1 point of damage, and as a first combat turn, the Klavex Warleader is going to take a swing of 3 directed at Packmaster Kith. That's going to be Kith at just 2 hit points, and now what, if anything, is Chris going to be able to do? Chris has got 5 resources. It's going to be enough for a Klavex Warleader or 2 copies of Archon's Terror, but that is not going to be enough. Kith takes a swing at, I believe it was a copy of the Kabalite Harriers, just because, man, oh man, are those just a hellish unit. No, it's going to be the Dying Sun Marauder. And that's potentially going to be a setup for Kith herself to do a Klavex Warleader, end up killing off that unit, but ever the wise gentleman, Taylor attacks with his wounded unit, kills off that copy of the Chimera Masters, and now is the Cultist token going to deal out a point of damage to something, or is it going to try to finish off that Dying Sun Marauder? Looks like it's going to direct a single point of damage to Taylor's copy of Klavex Warleader, and that's going to be a fantastic setup for Kith to throw out a Klavex of her own. And will we see it shielded or not? I have no idea how many cards Taylor has in hand, but that Klavex Warleader is going to end up taking a point of damage. The Shadowed Thorns Pillager takes a swing. That's going to be a bloodied Packmaster Kith. Packmaster Kith is going to be sent reeling, running away from that planet, and now that's going to be a Kabalite Harriers attacking for 1, a Kabalite Harriers attacking for another one. That's going to be a dead copy of Chaos Fanatics. There we we go. That's going to be that copy of Klavex Warleader. What is going to be destroyed? It's going to be the Klavex Warleader controlled by Taylor. And what are we going to see? That's going to be a copy of Archon's Terror, and that has got to be it right there. That is going to be the GG. Good game. Very well played by both of our players, but congratulations to Taylor Parolini for 2 games in a row, managing to pilot Archon Salaine Morn to a victory against the competitive powerhouse Packmaster Kith. A tremendous thanks to Chris for sending in this footage taken from Fantasy Flight Games itself at their event center in Roseville, Minnesota. That was a hell of a game. It was fantastic seeing those Harriers getting absolute work done, and this was just one hell of a game. So viewers, I hope you enjoyed this match half so much as I did, and if so, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already. Hit that share button and make sure that everyone you know who does not already play Conquest is going to be exposed to this channel, to this game, because the more we can grow this community together, the greater we are in number, the more we send a big, giant message to Fantasy Flight Games demanding that they continue to support and develop this fantastic product. If at any point you'd like to get in touch with me, I would definitely encourage you to do so through any form of social media, through Facebook or on Twitter, and if you ever feel inclined to help support the Hive Tyrant, I would deeply appreciate even $1 or $2 donated on a strictly monthly basis to my Patreon. It all goes to help me recover some of my file hosting and operating expenses, and each and every additional dollar further invested just goes right back into improving the audio and video quality of this channel. If you yourself are a content creator, be sure to contact me. I would absolutely love to promote articles, videos, or podcasts, whatever it is you do. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and once again, be sure to check back in again soon for much more Conquest LCG content to come.